Guys, Miss Parnell here with the On the Campaign Trail notes. I know you guys at least started these with Miss Badley. I don't know if you got to finish them or not. So you should have the note sheet to take them on. If you don't, you can take these notes on notebook paper. You can take them, I got a Word doc and a Google doc posted on the website, and you can click those and either print them off and write on them, or you can try and type in it. Remember, if you're doing the Google doc, go to File, go to Make a Copy. It'll put a copy in your Google Drive, and then you'll be able to type on that. All right, so first up was a video on the Painless Guide. You can go watch this video. It's that Harlan and Marie kind of arguing back and forth, talking about stuff. You've seen those videos earlier in the year. All right, so let's go through campaigning and elections. So first up is financing a campaign. Running for president is very expensive, billions and billions and billions of dollars. I mean, Michael Bloomberg, who ran for like a hot second as a Democrat nominee in the primary, spent billions of his own dollars. And then after like a month was like, ooh, I'm getting my butt kicked. And he had to drop out. So it is insane. And every election is more expensive than the one before. But the billions and billions of dollars that go into it, so mind blowing, especially if you think about the fact that half of it gets spent and the person loses. Like they don't even get it. Like literally half of the amount of money gets spent and nothing ever happens. So the things they use it on: advertising, newspapers, TV, posters, flyers, bumper stickers, buttons, all those signs in people's yard. It costs money to get them printed. Transportation, these people are traveling all over the place, but not just them. Their family members, the people they're running with, they're going state to state to state. Gas, hotel, airfare, all that stuff adds up. Salaries, tons of people work for them, tons of people. And then other expenses, you print stuff, you mail stuff, you have all these offices, you have all these computers, just all that stuff. These are all the people that ran against Donald Trump in the last election. So in the last election, how it starts out every election is all the people that want to be a Republican, all the people that want to be a Democrat start running against each other. And you have these elections and you start narrowing it down. And as people lose, they drop out. And as people win, you see who's going to be the one person. The one person standing at the end gets to be the person on the ballot in November as the Republican or as the Democrat. Now, if you'd seen this list, you probably wouldn't have thought it was him. Most people on this list have so much political experience. Some don't, but you have senators, you have governors, you have people who've run for president again. You have people, like Jeb Bush, his brother and his dad were president. Lindsey Graham, Chris Christie, governor of New Jersey, Lindsey Graham, a senator, Rand Paul, a senator, John Kasich and Bobby Jindal, Mike Huckabee, Rick Perry, all these people, governors, and big time stuff. Marco Rubio, senator. And so he was just kind of a political outsider, Washington outsider, just a billionaire businessman, very smart with money, who just decided to run for president. And lo and behold, he ended up winning. So here's how the primaries take place. This is what we just had happen about a month ago in North Carolina. So first off, there's an incumbent. And an incumbent is the person currently in office. Now, in this election coming up, Trump is the incumbent. He's currently in office. He's running again. In the last election with Hillary and Trump, nobody was the incumbent because Obama had been the president. Obama did his 2 terms. You can't do more than 2 terms or 10 years, so he wasn't running again. But this time there will be an incumbent. Most incumbents choose to run again. And then don't worry about primary and close. I'm going to take those off. If you wrote them with Miss Badley, cool, but I usually just. So primary elections are the first elections to choose the candidates to represent each party in the general election in November. So this is what's going on right now. It started in February, March. It's going on April. Plenty of them are actually getting postponed and moved back unfortunately, because of the coronavirus. So that's going to throw a major wrench into things. And as these elections go on, so like right now, there was a ton of people running against Biden. But right before Super Tuesday, about half of them dropped out. And after Super Tuesday, the other half dropped out. And it's pretty much down to Biden and Bernie Sanders right now. That's it. And then Trump, he's going to be representing the Republicans. So pretty early on, we actually already narrowed it down. Whereas when we had all these people, it went down to the summertime. It went down to the very end. You had Trump right here. You had Ted Cruz, and you had John Kasich. You had these 3 gentlemen up to the very end. And it was still kind of coming down to the wire of like, who's really going to win? But now we pretty much know it's either going to be Bernie or Biden. Closed and open primaries, we're going to skip that. So each state holds their primary during the winter. North Carolina's was actually not March 15th. It was earlier this year. And the Super Tuesday, I think Super Tuesday was in March this year because I think North Carolina's was on it. I didn't update these I didn't update these dates for this year because I had Miss Fadley teaching it, sorry. But the dates kind of switch around a little bit every year because it's on a Tuesday. Candidates who don't win the primaries drop out because you're spending tons of money. And you don't have to be a rocket scientist to see that, like, I'm spending all this money. I'm not winning anything. I'm getting my butt kicked. This dude over here is winning everything. It's very clear he's going to win. Let's just save myself some time, effort, energy, heartbreak, hassle, money, and go on and drop out. The candidates that don't win drop out. And so the states that vote at the end actually have less people to vote for. Like these states at the end, they're only going to get to vote for Bernie or Biden. Whereas some of the first states had like 20 people on their list that they could have chosen to vote for. Buttigieg, Klobuchar, Warren, Bloomberg, who else? Tons of people. Who wins the most primaries represents their party. So that was Donald Trump. He won the most primaries for the Republicans. So he was the Republican person on the ticket in the last election. Hillary Clinton beat Bernie Sanders and won the most primaries for her political party, the Democrats. She was on the ticket against Trump, and then they went head-to-head in the general election. The candidates officially announced at the party's national convention during the summer. So like I said, it took down to the summer to realize who was going to win in the last one with Trump. These are pictures of a national convention. And so now, after all that, now we're going to vote for president. So the presidential election takes place every 4 years. There's not a direct election for president. Instead, we use an indirect method called the Electoral College. Now, if we were in class, I would do this simulation with you guys. I don't know if Miss Fadley did it, where you kind of act them out in your states, and it kind of makes it make a little bit more sense. I'll try and put some videos up maybe you can watch to make it make sense, because this is a little bit of a hard concept to get. So the Electoral College, it is not a college. It's not. I don't know why it has that name. It's a group of people named by each state's legislature to select the president and vice president. So North Carolina picks 15 people, because that's how many electoral votes we get. So one person represents one vote. We pick 15 people to go to Washington, D.C., and when they get to Washington, D.C., their one job is to basically put a paper in a box, for lack of a better word. Like, so if Donald Trump, he won all of North Carolina in the primaries, the year when it was, not the primaries, the last election, Trump and Clinton. Trump won North Carolina. So when those 15 people from North Carolina got to Washington, D.C., every single one of them was supposed to put a ballot in that said Trump, 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 because that's who North Carolina picked. They don't divide themselves up or anything like that. And most electors always do that. It's very rare that someone would like defect or not do that. So that's that group of people. But there is something called the popular vote. There's the popular vote and the electoral vote. The popular vote is just the total number of votes, okay? And the electoral vote is the total number of electoral votes. So I'm going to take it off the PowerPoint real fast. It'll let me. And let's look up, okay? It was the 2016 election. I can't type. And let's look up electoral votes. So there's 538 total. Let's see if 304 plus 227 equals 538. Let's see if I know what I'm talking about. See if this somehow adds up. So 304 plus 227, it's 531. So I don't know. Oh, maybe some of the others went to someone else. I don't know. See? But anyways, out of all those 538, 304 of them went to Donald Trump, 227 went to Hillary Clinton. You need 270 to win, that you're going to see in a minute. So he won. That's how Trump won. He had more electoral votes. Now let's do 2016 election popular vote. Popular vote is just the people in America, like the total number. You add everyone up. Look, more people in America actually voted for Hillary Clinton. 65 million people voted for her, whereas only 62 million voted for Trump. So she won the popular vote, but she did not win the electoral vote, which is really odd. That thankfully doesn't happen much. Now, it did happen back in 2000. When we talk about, in the next PowerPoint, you'll see, if you hadn't watched it already, the vote notes. When I talk about those notes, I talk about the election in 2000 with Gore and Bush. More people voted for Gore, but Bush won. So it's only happened like 3 times total, but 2 of them have been maybe not within your life, but within my life, which is pretty crazy to think about. So yeah, so that's the difference between those. Let's get back into this. So that's, I gotta go all the way back through. Oh, I went too far. So the popular vote is just the total number of votes, people in the United States who they vote for, but the electoral vote is what counts. It's the total number of electoral votes. Each state has as many electoral votes as the total number of senators and reps. So you can't have less than 3 because you would have 2 senators because every state has 2 senators, and you would have at least 1 representative in the House of Representatives because that's the smallest you can be. You can't be like 0. So the smallest number of electoral votes you could have is 3. There's plenty of places, Montana, North Dakota, South Dakota, Wyoming. There's places that have that. The largest state is California with 55, which is pretty crazy. That means they have 53 people in the House of Representatives. Out of 435 in the House, they have like 50 of them, over 50 of them. That's wild. Texas is up next. Then you got New York and Florida. What you'll see in the next thing of notes, the vote notes, if you haven't already also, is that the states with the most electoral votes are the states where the people vote the least. And they have the most voter apathy, which is so frustrating. But if you look, North Carolina's in the top 10. So then you got Atlanta with more than us, Illinois with more than us, mainly just because like Chicago's so large there. Ohio with more than us, Pennsylvania with more than us. And outside of those big ones I just said, that's it. So we're in the top 10, which is pretty crazy out of all 50 states. So to say that people really campaign here is an understatement. Because here's the thing. People don't really campaign that much in California because a Democrat's going to win. Historically always have. So Republicans don't waste their money there. Texas, Republicans historically always win. So Democrats don't waste their time and money there. So they really focus on places like New York, Florida, North Carolina, Georgia. There's about 5 to 10 swing states that you'll see on the next slide, and we're one of them. So be prepared in this year to just be inundated with people, always visiting, always talking. We get so many commercials. If you think that every commercial is about a political ad, you're not wrong because they spend so much money in North Carolina because we're a swing state. Because we could go either way. It's not a guarantee that we're going to be Republican or Democrat. It's not a guarantee that Trump's going to win or that Bernie or Biden's going to win. They really have no idea. Like Obama won us, but then Trump won us. So we could go either way. Because think about it. Go back to the last thing in notes you took. When we're talking about Democrats versus Republicans, and we're kind of getting stereotypical. Obviously, we're about mixed men and women. But then think about it. North Carolina is pretty diverse. It's not all white. It's not all African American. It's not all Hispanic. There's, big groups of each. I mean, for every white person, there's a black person, there's a Hispanic person, right? For every poor person, there's a rich person. We have some really rich areas in North Carolina, and we have some really poor areas. You got big cities, you got urban areas, Charlotte, Raleigh, Durham, High Point, Greensboro, Winston, all kinds of urban areas, but then you have tons of rural areas too. That's the country. You have tons of like nothingness places in North Carolina, just like country. So we have all these mixtures of people, and it's about half and half. It's not like there's way more of one people than the other. So Democrats have a good chance of winning North Carolina. Republicans have a good chance of winning North Carolina. And with 15 electoral votes, that's a lot. I mean, you'd need like several of these places right here just to win, to even come close to that when you can just win one state right here. So they do. They campaign here harder than most places. So if you see a lot of cartoons, you are not imagining it. Cartoons, commercials. If you see a lot of commercials, you are not imagining it. So the total number of electoral votes is 538, but the total number of people in Congress is 535. The 435 in the House plus the 100 in the Senate. So if you're like, where are the other 3? That's what we'll talk about a little bit later. There was an amendment that gave Washington, D.C. the right to vote. So Washington, D.C. is not a state, so they didn't have any senators or reps, but it is a city, and there are people that live in the boundaries of Washington, D.C. And the interesting thing was they lived where the government was, but they couldn't vote because they weren't a part of a state to go vote at. They were just, it's like Maryland comes down and there's Washington, and Virginia comes up and there's Washington. And it's like, you live in Washington, D.C., you're not in Maryland, you're not in Virginia. Where do you go vote? So in the 1960s, they gave them 3 electoral votes. They get to go vote now too. That's why it's 538 instead of 535. And half of 538 is 269, which is why you need 270, one more than half to win. Most states have a winner take all, which means like if Trump wins by just 1 vote in North Carolina, we have like 5 million and right here and then 5 million and 1. We don't split the votes up. We don't say like, okay, well, you get 8 and you get 7. We don't do that. We give all 15 to the winners, and that's what most states do, which is how you get it to where someone like Hillary Clinton can win the popular vote, but then lose the electoral vote. So here's a map kind of showing the states that decide the election. And look, North Carolina's on there. We're one of the big ones. So you got to get 270 votes out of the 538. So if you ever watch the news at night on election night, they have these like countdowns, these screens, these number tallies on the screen. They're like the race to 270, and they're putting that up. And basically, as soon as you get to 270, I mean, you could win the first couple states, and if it's enough to get to 270 and the other guy doesn't win, like it doesn't matter what else comes in that night. Bam, you already won. Mathematically, they can't. It's over. If a candidate does not receive 270, say they tie at the 269 and 269, then the House of Representatives decides a winner. This only happened twice. It was back when we had way less states, so the numbers were not that high. It was the election of 1800 and the election of 1824. So in the election of 1800, if we were in class, I'd probably talk about this for like 30 minutes and show you all these videos, but I won't do it at home. But you got time for story time, right? You're not doing anything right now. Okay, good. So when I was telling you about Hamilton, a couple of PowerPoints earlier, if you were listening, if you've already watched those in the political parties, and if you've seen the musical Hamilton, or at least even heard of it, this is one of the biggest things. He was the Secretary of the Treasury. So this is the third election in United States history. This is the one where Thomas Jefferson's going to win. So Thomas Jefferson and this guy, Aaron Burr, are running against each other. And neither one of them gets the number they need. So the House of Representatives is going to have to pick. So Alexander Hamilton, who is not in the House of Representatives, he's just Secretary of Treasury, but kind of putting his nose in business where it doesn't belong, starts pretty much running through the House of Representatives being like, vote for Thomas Jefferson, vote for Thomas Jefferson, vote for Thomas Jefferson. Well, of course, that makes Aaron Burr really mad. He's like, dude, what the heck, like, come on. And he basically asks him to stop. He doesn't stop. He keeps doing it. And so, the election happens. Jefferson wins. That's why you've never heard of a guy named Aaron Burr before right now. And Aaron Burr is a little, upset about it. And so he challenges Alexander Hamilton to a duel. The shoot each other with a pistol, turn around, duel. And so the interesting fact is back then, this is a terrible idea. Thank goodness they don't do this anymore. The loser used to become the vice president. How terrible is that? Like, how much do you think they get along? Because they don't. Can you imagine Hillary Clinton being the vice president to Trump? Oh my gosh, it'd be such a train wreck. So anyways, Aaron Burr is the vice president. So the vice president of the United States challenges the Secretary of Treasury to a duel. And back in those days, it was kind of like a manly man. It was an honors thing. Of course you did it. You didn't say no, but it was kind of understood that you weren't going to get shot and killed. Like, it's just a stand up thing. But a lot of times they shot over their head or they just did this, and especially if you're like the vice president of the United States, like you're probably not going to kill somebody, right? So anyways, they go out and they, back to back. I don't know how it went down. Take their 20 paces, turn around, fire their gun, and Alexander Hamilton gets shot. Now, did Aaron Burr mean to do it? And he was like, heck yeah, I did. I challenged him to a duel. I shot and killed him. Or did he mean to shoot over him or beside him? He didn't. Who knows? But anyways, Alexander Hamilton gets shot and dies. The vice president of the United States shoots and kills someone while in office, and he dies. So, needless to say, you've never heard of Aaron Burr because he pretty much has to disappear off into obscurity because even Thomas Jefferson's like, whoa, don't want to be associated with that. Don't really want my name in with that. And so that's what ends up happening to Alexander Hamilton. So you can see how meddling in elections never turns out good, right? Even back then. All right, so anyways, we vote the first Tuesday after the first Monday in November. What does that mean? Yeah, it's weird. I don't know why they say this. Basically, all that means is if November 1st is a Tuesday, we don't vote on November 1st. We wait a week. Because if the 1st is any other day of the week, you will have already had your Monday before you vote. So like if November 1st is on a Wednesday, by the time you have that Tuesday, you will have already had your Monday the day before it. So it's just their weird way of saying we vote the first Tuesday of November unless November 1st is a Tuesday. And if so, we don't vote on the 1st. We wait a full week. Why so picky? I don't know. It's kind of crazy. Like I said, in some of the in the vote notes, you usually know the winner that night. Like I stayed up late enough on the last election with Hillary and Trump to know that Trump won before I went to bed. You have to usually stay up about midnight or 1, because you got the polling places on the West Coast that are behind us and they have to close and start counting up their votes. And then, but usually it's that night. In the vote notes, what I was talking about was the election in 2000 with Gore and Bush and how a month went by before we knew who won. It was crazy. I'll have to check out those notes if you want to hear that story. The president is sworn in January 20th at noon. And There's a YouTube video about it. I can't remember which one that is. That might be the clip from The Daily Show or something, but anyways. And that's it for the campaign trail notes. Woohoo! Hope that explained it. I can go back. I'll try and find some videos on Electoral College just to make it more clear. Let me tell you one more thing about it. I know you're probably over this. Just one last thing. So here's how Electoral College works. Let's pretend we were at Glenn voting for Homecoming Queen. So I used to be in charge of Homecoming. I used to be in charge of the voting for that. And you know how you vote for that in homerooms. So popular vote is if every single person at Glenn voted for someone and we counted it up and picked a winner. That's actually what we do. The Homecoming Queen at Glenn is popular vote. Electoral vote, let's take the homerooms. Pretend each classroom is like a state. But, like let's say, and let's even say they're not homerooms. Let's say they're first periods. So some first periods are small. Maybe you've been in a class that's like you and 10 people. Some first periods are big. Maybe you've been in a classroom and literally there's like not spare space, right? You got some classrooms and maybe like Miss Parnell wins this classroom. Oh, thank you guys. But there's only 10 people in it. So it's like me winning a really small state. And Miss Fadley, she wins across the hall and there's 30 people in there. So it looks like we're tied. Miss Parnell won one state and Miss Fadley won one state. Miss Parnell won one classroom, one first period. Miss Fadley won one of the classrooms, one first period. We're tied, right? Well, not exactly. Miss Parnell only had about 10 people vote for, whereas Miss Fadley had 30 people vote for. So the popular vote's like the 30 versus the 10. The electoral vote's more like the 1 and 1. Look at the states. And then it's like if there was a gym class or something, if I went in and won a gym class, there's like, how many people in gym? Like 50 or 60 people? All of a sudden, you could look at it and say, oh, Miss Parnell won, she got 2 classes. But you could add it up. I could win like 3 classes on a hallway. And Miss Fadley just take gym and she beat me. And you're like, whoa, Miss Parnell won like 3 states. She won 3 different homerooms. Miss Fadley only won 1 homeroom. Well, her homeroom was gym. That was a ton of people. And my first periods were just a little bit of people. See what I'm saying? So it's all in how you want to count it. Do you want to count people up and add it? They say that would be pretty much impossible to do with the amount of people that we have living in America. And it's much easier for the states to count it up and then figure out who won the states, aka the classroom teacher counted up, figure out who won the classroom, and then that classroom be that person, and that classroom be that person, like that state be them, and that state be them. And then just add up the classrooms at Glenn, add up the states in America, and that's a lot easier than adding up, hundreds of millions of people. That's why they say they do it. But you could argue all day which one's fair. Miss Parnell winning the classrooms, Miss Fadley winning the classrooms, Miss Parnell having more people, Miss Fadley having more people. But that's basically what happened. More people voted for Hillary Clinton, but more states voted for Donald Trump. So it'd be like people, or that would be like classrooms. So anyways, hope that helped cleared it up. And yeah, see you guys next time. Bye.